this is the first time my UFC career I'll be fighting as the champion and not the challenger. But then again, in my career, I've had more fights as a champion than as a challenger. There was a 5-6 year period where I had 3 belts outside of the UFC. I had a UFC welterweight title, which I defended, a UFC middleweight title, which I defended, and I had the KSW welterweight title. So I had, it was the weirdest thing for me when I came to the UFC to start training to my first fight, and every fight training for 3 rounders. It was the weirdest thing, when I'm doing my fight distances, simulations, and doing even my conditioning for a fight for 3 rounder. It was so much different that when I fought for the belt against Strickland, I almost went, wow, we're back to 5 rounds. It felt familiar. It felt right. It felt like that's the way it should be done. So this is not very different. No, it's actually not different at all. The only thing that's going to change in this fight is I'll be walking out second.
You're a guy who's been active, especially, I think, would you fight in like December and then March and then the summer? I mean, you were really active. What's this been like, sitting down for a little bit and obviously waiting for this fight to materialize? And I guess, do we expect to see the same Dricus in there? Are you improved in certain areas? Although obviously the best in the world right now, so kind of tough to build on that. But what kind of fighter do we see in there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I try to be as active as possible. My first 2 fights were quite far apart. And my first to third fight, because of COVID, I wasn't allowed to travel for 10 months. I had another fight, then wasn't allowed to travel for another year. Had the fight, and then I just went on it. I just fought in July. I fought in December. I fought in March, and again in July. So then I had those 4 fights trying to climb that ladder, and all of them were ranked opponents.
Yeah.
And then I got the shot. Unfortunately, I got injured in the title fight quite badly. I couldn't train for 6 weeks. It took for the injury to heal. And it was also good because I've worked my whole career not taking all time off. Obviously there were some gaps in between fights, but those gaps weren't me just taking off from fights. That was me training and getting better. And even though I couldn't fight, we didn't know when I would be able to fight. So I just stayed on it. So, for me, this was also a time to reflect, a time to, because, you have these goals, you have these, these checkpoints along the way of the ultimate goal of being the greatest ever. And being UFC world champion deserves a time to sit and reflect and enjoy and, appreciate what I've done. So this was perfect. I mean, it was 6 weeks of, I would say 4 weeks of not being able to really do anything in terms of training. Very, very limited training I was able to do. And then it was back at it. And then so I basically spent 6 months just improving, just working on the things that made me a world champion and getting them just better. Everything that I believe I was a 6 and a 7 out of 10, got that up to 8 and a 9 out of 10. That's going to make, that's a big jump. That's 10% improvement. That's massive. And I believe the fight, you're going to see me exactly the way I fight. I go out there and I entertain fans, and I have entertaining fight style, more polished. Every single fight we've seen in the UFC, I've been more polished. And that, at the end of the day, I have the knockout power. We've seen that many times. I have the strength. I have the cardio. I have the gas tank to go full speed for 5 rounds. It's about being more polished and making it look easy.
I'm sure you've listened to, for years, people call Israel, if not one of the greatest, if not the greatest, striker that's ever stepped foot in an octagon, one of the greatest. Do you feel you're striking ain't too bad yourself, as we all know? Are you confident? Are you confident to stand across from him, Dricus, and win the fight that way?
100%. You can't argue with that. The way he strikes, his striking is phenomenal. He is, and has been. But the game is changing so fast. He has his traditional striking style, and that's great, and he's amazing at it. But I mean, you can see that with the wrestling guys. You can see that with how grappling in MMA has changed. it used to be the pure jiu-jitsu guys. When they had you on the ground, it was over. You now have grappling as a completely different aspect as jiu-jitsu when it comes to MMA. Same with wrestling. MMA wrestling is completely different from let's say freestyle wrestling, Greco-Roman wrestling. It's different. There's similarities in certain situations, but it's a sport in its own and it's developed in such. Same with the striking. The striking with K1 kickboxing, Muay Thai, it's completely different. The stance, that makes it more effective for MMA. And MMA striking is something in its own. This is MMA. And like we've seen, I mean, he got outstruck by Strickland 5 rounds to none, maybe 5-4, 5-1, 4-1.
Right.
And I went there toe-to-toe with Strickland and I beat him. So, it goes to show that, when it comes to the striking, mine looks different. But, when it comes to being effective, I don't really care how it looks like. At the end of the day, I need my hand raised, and that's what it's about.
Obviously everyone saw, center of the octagon, the moment and how bad the blood seemingly was. Some time has passed. Where do you stand with Israel personally? I mean, is this just another fight for you? Do you have personal anger towards him? Emotionally and mentally, Dricus, where are you as far as Israel's concerned?
I have to tell you this, and it's been like this for me the whole time. Fighting Israel has never been personal. Fighting Israel Adesanya is purely, and why I wanted this fight so bad, it was purely the accomplishment, the achievement of beating, like you say, a guy that people consider one of the best to ever do it. And I agree with those people, 100%. And that's what this fight's about for me. I don't care about anything. When it comes, you ask me what I think of him as a person. I don't know him well enough, but I can tell you on what it looks like. I don't like Israel Adesanya. I can't say that it bothers me as why I don't like him. I just don't think we have we would be friends outside of this situation. Not necessarily enemies, just not friends. It's not my kind of person.
Right.
But and in saying that, like what we enjoy doing, what we think the world should be, how we approach life, I don't think we are similar in that situation, except for the fact that we are both warriors. And that's fine. That's life. You don't like everybody you meet, but that is all completely irrelevant. What I think of him personally makes no difference to what I think of him when that cage door closes. When that door closes, I'm going to kill you. And you better be wanting to do the same, because I don't see a person in front of me. I see something in front of me that's in between me and my goal, and I'll do whatever it takes to destroy it. And whether you're a nice guy or not, whether I like you or I hate you, it makes no difference once that door closes. It's business. I'm there to do my job. I'm there to defend my belt, and that's what I'll do.
Are you a bit peeved that you, the champion, have to go in your first title defense and fight in Australia? It's his backyard. He might not be from Australia, but it's in his backyard. It's not in a neutral site like Las Vegas or somewhere else in the States. It's Australia. Are you peeved, Dricus?
I'm extremely happy. If I had it my way, I would have done it in Auckland, where he's from. I would have loved that. I haven't been cheered in one of my fights since joining the UFC. I guess the most cheers I've gotten was when I fought in Fight Island, because there were 2 team members and they were cheering and there were no crowd. So, I've been, when I fought before the UFC, I was a crowd favorite. I know what it's like to be the favorite, and rightfully so. And I know what it's like to be booed. I don't care. It's energy at the end of the day. And like in Canada, I was booed. There was the loud roar of boos me walking out to the fight. And by the 4th round, those were all cheers. People were chanting my name because they are there. I understand people follow a certain persona. They follow somebody that says the things they like to hear, and it's entertaining. But when the fight starts, that's why they pay the big money, is to watch the fight. And that's what I'm there. I'll create my fans like that, and I'll turn the crowd. There's a lot of South Africans in Perth. I know that for a fact. A lot of South Africans. And I mean, it's his backyard. I'm really happy. I mean, Perth and Australia is basically a close second for me, coming if not having it in South Africa. This is a close second. So, like I said, if this was in his hometown, we could have done this fight in his gym. I would have loved it even more. He had to go out there and bring his head home on his home mats would have been perfect. But we're in Perth. It's an amazing place. I love Australia. It's my first time here. From a press conference in Australia, love it. People are amazing. The fans and everybody's super psyched for this event. I think it's going to be a crazy atmosphere. But no, I'm not bummed out at all that I had to travel to Australia. It's actually great. I mean, I get to see another country. It's been great. One of my favorites I've been to, and I think the crowd's going to be insane. I can just feel it with the atmosphere around the people and this whole fight week.
That's awesome. I'll get you out. And two more quick ones. You said you want to be the greatest ever. What do you think you have to do to be the greatest ever, Dricus? I mean, being in Israel obviously seems like a great notch on the belt and a big step in getting there. What else do you think you need to do to get to that place?
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of water need to flow for me to be considered as one of the greatest. I know that for a fact, but beating Israel Adesanya is definitely a step in the right direction, and keep on doing what I'm doing. I've beaten Robert Whittaker, I've beaten Israel Adesanya. Then, I mean, the first guy to ever do that, and that's both of their resumes is incredible. It's incredible. So I mean, beating Israel Adesanya doesn't make me the greatest middleweight, or it makes me one of the greatest middleweights ever. That's for sure. That's for sure. But no, one of the greatest middleweights, I don't think so. The greatest middleweight. I mean, the greatest middleweight of all time is Anderson Silva, and he's an absolute legend and a hero of mine. And that paves the way of what I need to be doing. I mean, there's been people before me who's been considered GOATs. You look at a guy like John Jones, you look at a guy like Anderson Silva, GSP. Those are the guys that's laid out the framework of what needs to be done to be considered as one of the GOATs.
Last thing, what would the message be to Israel Adesanya, as now we're just days away from, like you said, people in Australia, people thousands of miles over here in LA are so psyched for this fight. What's the message before you step in there and you try and take his head off, like you just said?
I know he said he's going to show me who I am, and I can't wait to show him. He has no idea who I am.